Welcome to Penn State Dickinson Law's Profiles in Leadership series. My name is Daryl Lim. I serve as the H. Leddy Bontab Junior Chair and Associate Dean for Research and Innovation at the Law School. I'm pleased to be joined by my special co-host today, Daniel Conway, Dean, and Donald L. Faraj, Professor of Law at Penn State Dickinson Law. This series offers an unparalleled opportunity to glean insights from top leaders who serve in government, education, the private sector, and civil society. In each episode, we invite these leaders to reflect on their journeys and share skills, core values, and qualities that make them the leaders they are today. First, we have Nichole Velasquez, Fellows Program Director at the Leadership Council on Legal Diversity, or LCLD. In her current role, she manages all aspects of the Fellows Program, a year-long professional development program for mid-career attorneys. As LCLD's flagship talent development program, the Fellows Program launched in 2011 with less than 120 attorney participants and has now grown to more than 450 participants, and probably more since this was 2022. Nichole's role includes planning the curriculum, choosing speakers and topics that addresses participant needs, collaborating with member organizations to host events, communicating regularly with participants, promoting the program and LCLD to its members, and attending DEI conferences and events. A position requires staying on the cutting edge of legal developments on DEI topics. Prior to this role, she was the Director of Private Sector Recruitment and Outreach at the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law. Nichole has also been a Maryland Assistant Attorney General in the Contracts Litigation Division and a litigation associate with the law firm of Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston in Baltimore, Maryland. She received a JD from the Dickinson School of Law of the Pennsylvania State University, now known as Penn State Dickinson Law. And another alumni who is joining us today is Joel Samuels. Born in Calcutta, India, Joel grew up in the Midwest and on the Big Island of Hawaii. During law school, he clerked in the in-house legal department at Coca-Cola's world headquarters in Atlanta. After law school, Joel worked in New York City for several years before returning to St. Louis. This personal experience allows Joel to provide legal advice in the context of a global marketplace and cross-cultural issues. Outside of the office, Joel is a music enthusiast and a multi-instrumentalist. His musical accomplishments include a performance at the famed Carnegie Hall. He also enjoys hiking, fishing, and gardening. Prior to becoming an attorney, Joel served as a first responder, as an emergency medical technician basic. In addition to his career as an attorney, Joel is an adjunct professor at Washington University School of Law. Well, welcome to all three of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with your background, and if you would give folks some insight to your law school experiences.
Yeah, I can get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Professor Lim, for Dean Conway, for inviting me. I was at Penn State Dickinson Law, as it's now called, I graduated in 2004, so I started in 2001 to 2004. I was solely in the Carlisle campus. I'm sure, it's beautiful now, but it was our building back then. And I actually was thinking back at my time at law school, and one of the things I remember is starting, you start the semester, and as soon as we started, 9/11 actually happened. And so that's one of my memories actually of law school, is having, been in class and everybody rushing to the cafeteria area, going to see there was a TV set up, watching that, having to go back to class. I think none of the professors knew kind of what to do. Do we keep classes going? Do we cancel classes? And I think some did a combination of both. But that kind of event, and people were obviously, I'm a crier, was, crying with people you don't even know, I think really helped, get to know certain classmates a little bit when you go through something like that. Because I really, really enjoyed my time at I don't know what to call it now, Penn State Dickinson Law, Dickinson Law. And, you know, I did all the fun stuff. I think I did, you know, trial team. I loved going to competitions, that sort of thing. I think though, you know, coming to law school, I was a little bit lost, not having anybody in my family who went to law school, not having any idea what to expect, not really thinking seriously about, well, what am I going to do with this? What is it that I really want to do? And so throughout law school, I always interned at state's attorney's offices, figuring I would be a prosecutor. That's what really interested me. I thought I would go that route. And then after law school, I clerked for a judge in a county in Maryland. It's Cecil County. It's very far north, almost into Delaware. And still loved that atmosphere, loved being in the courtroom. Then it came time to get my job after my clerkship, and I, like many people, got the firm offer, and so thought, well, I'll do that for a few years, pay off some loans, and then I'll kind of, you know, do what I really want to do. So went to the law firm for a little while, about 2.5 years. I think I was an associate. I did construction litigation, and at that time, and we can talk a little bit later about kind of my transition, but I ended up going to the Maryland Attorney General's office, which was basically doing the same type of work, contract litigation, it's construction law. And then after that is when I kind of made my jump out of the legal practice into kind of legal adjacent, I say, position, where I went into the law school for about 8 years at the University of Maryland Francis King Carey School of Law, another school with a really long name, before I was lucky enough to get my current role now as the Fellows Program Director at LCLD.
Great, thanks so much, Nichole. Joel, what about you? Bring us through your law school journey and your transition after that.
Sure. So I am a little bit after Nichole. I started at Trickett down in, I don't know what that was, 2005. So I was there from 2005 to 2008. I'm an 08 graduate. I went to Penn State Dickinson mainly because they recruited me. I got an offer to go apply, and I did. The Penn State name was really why I chose to apply there. I wanted the Big Ten experience. Of course, had I realized and appreciated the Dickinson tradition and history, I probably would have made that choice a lot easier. But I went there. So I was started in Carlisle. I think I was the last class to do kegs in the curtilage. And then my second year summer, they opened the campus for the location at University Park. So I did my second and third year years up there. So I see both, you know, I'm both. To say Penn State Dickinson feels natural to me because it was Dickinson and then became Penn State for me. And I bridged both of those campuses. For me, I went to law school for different reasons. I wanted to do education law. I had done in Hawaii, was on the state student council for 3 years. I did student government in college, and that's what I thought I was going to do. That's what I knew. But you know, part of the law school experience is knowing other classmates and your professors. And I think the professors at Penn State Dickinson were very instrumental in my career. And one of them, Professor Farmer, said, "Hey, if you got an economics degree, you might want to check out antitrust. And by the way, the ABA spring meeting is down in DC and it's free for law students." And she didn't have to say more after that. But I went there and I met someone who was in-house at Coca-Cola at the time doing antitrust compliance. And that's how I got my second year summer. And that's how I started my career doing antitrust law. And so that's where I was. I was at Axon Veltrop in New York City for a couple of years. And then I came back to St. Louis. St. Louis is now a family town, and been with the firm since 2011.
Thank you. And both of you have a connection with LCLD. I think that's a good segue for Dean Conway to take it away with her next series of questions.
Yes, thank you so much. And just to remind everyone, we are Penn State Dickinson Law. And so when we talk about that history, it's important. And it's important because our history doesn't necessarily connect us with strong support for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, but we really have become a leader in that space probably around the time, Joel, that you graduated, when one of our admissions professionals, Jay Austin, was here and was really pivotal in our transition to a predominantly white institution to one that was serious about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And I think the law school now has taken it up a notch with its leadership in anti-racism and active diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And so it's in that space that I would welcome your comments about the history of the LCLD and why that institution is so important to the active DEIB work and the anti-racism work that Penn State Dickinson Law is leading on.
Sure. Well, I can give, certainly a little bit about insight in the history of LCLD, and then I can let Joel talk about his experience in the Fellows Program. So LCLD was founded basically in 2009, and Rick Palmore is the one who's credited as our founder. He was the general counsel, I believe, of General Mills, or maybe it was Sally Lee at the time. I know he's been general counsel of both. And he basically wrote this call to action, urging other general counsels, saying, what are we doing about this? Why aren't we more diverse at this point in the legal profession? What is going on? What can we do? And so that really spearheaded the start of LCLD. Again, that's Leadership Council on Legal Diversity, just refer to as LCLD throughout. But what happened is a bunch of general counsel and managing partner got together and realized, we have to work together to solve this issue. It can't just be law firms. It can't just be the clients. So we were an organization that really said we need to have a partnership between managing partners and law firms in order to work on creating a more diverse legal profession. And that is really our mission, is to diversify the legal profession. How we started was really through talent development. So the Fellows Program was one of our first programs. We also have an LCLD, a 1L Scholars Program, and a Mentor-Mentee Program for 1L law students. So we kind of have a foot in the door as far as getting exposure at law schools and having, law students who are coming into law school being paired with mentors, having a 1L Scholars Program, which gives them positions over the first summer. And then what I'm most familiar with is the Fellows Program. So that started in 2011, and it's for mid-career attorneys. What I think was really an issue in the legal profession is once diverse attorneys especially got kind of to partnership, there was this, how do I really develop business, right? I don't have the relationships that many other people have. I wasn't exposed to this before. So we really wanted to hit that spot in an attorney's career of when they're starting to really develop their leadership skills, and maybe there's a lack of training in that area up until then. Because, at law firms, you're doing the work and you become a really good attorney, but that doesn't always mean you're a good, owner of the firm or manager of other people. There's so many other skills. And so the Fellows Program was formed in 2011, less than 150 attorneys. So basically, if you're a member of LCLD, a general counsel, or a managing partner, your organization can send a fellow through the program. Now, as was mentioned in the intro, we're over 430. We've had 450 attorneys in this program, and it's a year-long program. We have a couple tenets, and I tell this at the beginning of every program. My goal is leadership development. I think we have great substance. I have relationships with some, I think, the best speakers out there on different leadership topics. We also have the second tenet is relationship building. And I really think that is probably the most important part that comes out of the Fellows Program, is the relationships that everybody forms together. Because as we all know, you can't be successful alone, right? You need a network, and you need people around you that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas off of. And not everybody had that in the place that they worked. So we were giving them that opportunity. And then the last one is access to leaders. With LCLD, our members, our general counsel, and our managing partners are asked to host events for our fellows. And they're asked to be authentic, answer questions, don't give the typical, let me read from the script about what my organization does. And no, really talk about your leadership journey, answer questions so that our fellows can really get to know you and get some good advice. Now, what happened is as our fellows program grew, we realized that there's another kind of pain point in an attorney's career. There's more than two, but another one that we sought to address was kind of that junior attorney, that junior associate, that third, fourth year associate, where, stats show a lot of times that's when people leave the profession. I did. I left after 4 years when I realized it wasn't quite what I thought it would be. I didn't feel like I had any support. I was kind of a, fish out of water. So that's when the Pathfinder program was created in 2015. And that program is similar to the Fellows program in that we give great substantive content and relationship building, but we gear that more towards junior attorneys. So, while that is a program based on kind of foundational leadership skills, our Fellows program is more on, I would say, executive leadership skills. And Pathfinders has now grown bigger than Fellows. And it is really a starting point for younger attorneys to start building their network so that when they become, fellows, point in their career, they've already kind of established relationships, which is so beneficial to their organizations. And it also gives them that, place, people they can talk to, advice they can get. And then once Pathfinders and Fellows kind of graduate their year, we're not a certificate program. We're not a degree granting institution. So, I say complete their year. The programs are a year. They become part of LCLD alumni. And right now there are over 5,000 LCLD alumni who have graduated these two programs. They've created their own executive council. They have regional leads. They have city leads. They do events. They support each other. So there's a whole now other community outside of the programs that has formed almost organically, the kind of alumni. And now we have a full-time alumni program manager on our staff and a specialist that supports that, because the alumni has gotten so big and have so many great ideas and so much desire to continue their relationships and developing and kind of just representing what LCLD was meant for. Since LCLD has formed, we have so many, and I wish I had the exact number of fellows who've now become general counsel themselves, who've become judges, who've really stepped up in the leadership role and are now members, which is awesome. We have, a handful of former fellows that are now members because they're now the general counsel or the managing partner. And so really seeing the trajectory or seeing their career kind of develop through this program and the connections they've made through LCLD, it's my favorite part. I have the best job.
Well, that's great. And I do want Joel to give us a rundown on his experience through that stewardship to leadership. But I want you both to think about the next question I will ask, which is, what is your definition of leadership, particularly as you have experienced it as attorneys of color? So Joel, please do give us the summary of your experience in the Fellows program.
Sure. So I am a 2023 LCLD fellow. So I just went through the program. And for me, the program was more rewarding than I could have even imagined. I had read about it. We had other people here at the firm had gone through it and understood it. But for me, it came at the perfect time. And it came really to recognize a lot of things that I may not have recognized or really consciously made an effort to do in the diversity space and leadership space as well. And so for me, as Nichole was talking about, the connections were really, really important. So I I was born in an orphanage in Calcutta. I was adopted as a baby, 3 months old here. I lived in St. Louis. I lived in Israel. I lived in Hawaii. I've lived all over the place. And while I have strong connections and friendships that come out of those, especially with many friends from my time at Penn State Dickinson, to have people who are the same sort of experience level was phenomenal. And part of the program, you are divided up into accountability partner groups, which are about, 12 to 15 people, I think, Nichole, who, at least for our year, all graduated at the same year. And so we have the same experiences. And so we can share candidly, what is it like to be a partner or the counterpart in a leader in the in-house setting. And at the same time, on the personal side, a lot of us have family and kids at the same time. How do you manage all of that? And how do you do this? Because there wasn't really the space for that for me outside of other connections, and to have a space and community where you can have honest conversations without an agenda. Like, we're not trying to sell to each other. We're not trying to impress each other. They're not our spouses. They're not our, colleagues or our partners or anything else that come with, their own set of different things. And to have that was just, very rewarding. And so I'll go ahead and answer your question about what does leadership mean, and how has I've done that. I think, one of the part of the programs is they have, at least certain times, webinars where a general counsel will just have a Q&A about their journey. And one of them more recently said, well, you've used DE&I efforts, not just to be, it's not a quota-based system. It's not to make sure that we've got an Indian guy sitting here, right? It's more about expanding the pool and recognizing what talent and experiences are from various different settings to make sure that you can get the best talent and to make sure you can get the broadest and the best person, regardless of what that person looks like. You're drawing from you're just expanding the pool and make sure you're getting the best. And so for me, as a leader in this space, and at the law firm and otherwise, is to make sure people have the opportunities to have conversations, to take on projects, and to be there. And so that's, I think, what's really important. And that's what I think LCLD has really helped me to recognize as something that I benefited and didn't realize that coming up, and things I should do going forward.
I think what impresses me, Joel, about your rendition of your experience is that you came to LCLD in 2023. So you already had a vast range of experiences that invoked your leadership qualities. But I really appreciate how you talk about how important it was to have that experience in 2023 at the right time. Can you talk a little bit about that? How this is a journey, how you can always grow as a leader?
Yeah, so I think, when you come up, especially through private practice, as I think Nichole mentioned, there are certain things that are expected of you. There are certain things that you do to grow your skills. And then you become partner, depending on your experiences, sometimes they're partner and they're like, oh, now you got to get business. You're like, well, what is that? How do I do that? So the fellows program to start that, and the Pathfinder program to start that even earlier, I think is just a fantastic part of LCLD. But, for me, I was already a partner. I had been a partner for several years, and it just furthered the connections and the experiences. And how do we do this? And to be able to talk to my accountability partners about how they're building their practices and how they're also supporting and training other people and giving feedback to people they're mentoring has been really, really helpful.
And then the last follow-up I have for you, Joel, before I switch to Nichole and ask her about leadership, is your resoluteness in being very honest about your background, and to talk about being an orphan in Calcutta and then living in St. Louis and then having experiences on the Big Island. You've had to adapt. And so how has that adapting also fit into your leadership journey?
So this is something that I've spent probably the past year reflecting on, and it was really because of one of the speakers at the LCLD program about it. I didn't, for the longest time, I'm adopted, and my parents are Swedish and Swiss German. So a lot of the times, the most Indian thing about me is the fact that I'm from India. But then to connect and think about, well, I have had all these other experiences and lived all over the place. And I think that has allowed me to be exposed to various different viewpoints. And I didn't realize that until I started going back and thinking about my journey here, and to make sure that you're understanding people and where they're coming from and all the different dynamics that can be coming across beyond just the position they're advocating for. You know, I'm a litigator, and one of the biggest things that I tell my students and my team here at the firm is you can be zealous advocates for your client, and you should be. That is your job, and that's your professional responsibility to represent your client. But you don't have to be a jerk about it. You know, understand everyone, be civil about it, because one, it's a small pool, and two, understanding where they're coming from and where their clients are coming from makes a big difference. And I think, you know, understanding people in different backgrounds and just being exposed to different backgrounds lets me think about who it is on the other side and how are they approaching things. Because a lot of times you're going to need a relationship with opposing counsel, even if you're fighting tooth and nail on things, to get things done. So I think as I reflect back, having different experiences to relate to different people in different settings has been really helpful.
Thank you. And Nichole, now I'll shift over to you and remind you about the question on the table, how you are defining leadership and how that's impacting how the fellowship program is expanding.
So I think what I've learned, and like Joel said, you know, we do these series where, you know, we talk to different leaders. So I've been exposed to so many different leaders, leadership styles. And one of the things that I have learned, and actually every year I kind of adjust the fellows program, it changes every year from what I've learned, from, you know, what the hot topics are. And this kind of is very similar to what Joel said, is that everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And the more, I think, authentic you can be with your story, and the more you can maybe even talk about things that, as Joel said, you never really talked about before, you thought maybe you're uncomfortable. So I started, I believe, for Joel's class, I did a little series on authenticity, and I told my story, which I never thought was a story. You know, I grew up in a very white bread neighborhood, and I talked about how I hated the first day of school. And I asked everybody in the audience who also hated the first day of school, and people, yes, you know, you could tell. Why did you hate it? And sure enough, somebody said it, we hated the attendance because nobody could say my name. And here I am, this kind of shy girl, and every like as if it, you know. And so I hated the first day of school, and I connected with so many people over that. And then I talked about, you know, going through high school, there was no, you know, really good Hispanic role models. I wore a lot of powder on my face. I wanted to be white. I wanted to be white like the people I saw all around me. I thought that's how I would be successful. And I asked them, I said, who was the first very successful Hispanic woman that kind of broke barriers? Somebody got it. It was J-Lo. Honestly, it was J-Lo, where we started to see Hispanic, you know, people. You know, she did music, she did television. You're like, wow, okay, I can, you know, that's pretty cool. And so it was a journey for me. And by sharing that with, you know, the fellows, it wasn't anything that I felt made me weaker. I felt like it made more connections. And that's really the leaders that I see. And I've witnessed leaders talking about how they have imposter syndrome at times. You know, these big heads of companies have imposter syndrome, just like everybody else. You know, and I've seen another leader tell her story about growing up and kind of how she got to where she is. And so for me, leadership is really about, you know, there's people that lead by fear, and we all know those people. I've worked for those people. But the people that you really want to follow, which is what a leader is, you don't have to be the GC to be the leader, right? You can be a leader in whatever organization you are. But connecting with people is really how they're gonna want to follow you. They're gonna want to be around you. Like Joel said, don't be a jerk. Nobody wants to follow those people, even if they're the managers, right, or the heads. That doesn't necessarily make them a leader. So I think what I've kind of learned is that there is a difference between the person who's just, in charge of you and the people that lead. And everybody has a story. And this year I actually opened up the fellows program with saying everybody has a story, and everybody here belongs. Whether you are here because, you are, you're a parent and you have to leave at 4:30 every Tuesday and Thursday to take your kid at soccer practice and people look at you funny, you belong here. Whether you are the African-American woman who has been tone shamed, watch your tone, and so you have to watch yourself. Whether you are somebody who has a different gender identity than everybody at their place of work, and everybody's okay with it, but you can't talk about it too much. You belong here. And even if you're just an ally and you want to help everybody, but you don't know how, you belong here because you all have different stories and you're all, leaders, and we want to help you develop that. So that's really kind of the leadership lesson I've learned, is the difference between, real leaders and those who just have the title.
So I'd love to do something a little different here, and I'm going to involve the co-host as well. And I want to read a definition to you of leadership. And the reason I want to do this is, yes, because I wrote it, but the other reason is because we often talk about leadership by examples, what it looks like or what it doesn't look like. And so with this project called Building an Anti-Racist Law School, Legal Academy, and Legal Profession, I felt it important to begin to engage leadership through praxis, which means theory and practice, right? To give a definition so that we can start to apply that theory to the action that you all are talking about. And so I'm going to read the description, the definition that I have created for leadership. And for each of you, I would love to get your reaction about what one thing resonates with you, and then why. And so I'll read it a little slowly. So I say that leadership is dimensional, situational, and positional. It is a concept that is both abstract and pliable. It is also forged by internal, liminal, and external forces that, when exerted, move an object or a scenario in either expected or unexpected ways. It is the trusting and understanding of the self, the knowledge of the surrounding landscape, the prescience to see and evaluate what lies ahead, the courage to vision toward a sustainable future, the capacity to develop colleagues committed to serving the vision and the mission, the wisdom to learn from past successes and failures, the fortitude to adapt to changing circumstances, and the resilience to navigate through crucible experiences with humility, all of which work together to animate leadership. So yes, now that you've heard that comprehensive definition, because I challenge people to actually talk about a definition for leadership. We see all these leadership books, but we really don't see a definition. So this is my own social science experiment. What resonated with you about that definition? And it doesn't have to be a bunch of things. It can just be one thing. So Joel, I'm going to go to you because you are the consummate note taker. I've been watching you all this time. It's wonderful to see. So what resonated with you?
Well, I thought it was a very good and encompassing definition, but the part about being dynamic and situational, as well as the part about, capacity to develop others, was really resonated with me. I'm a Jesuit student. I went to St. Louis University. We were trained to be men and women for others. That is what we are in servant leadership. And so those aspects of that definition really resonated with me. But how we can do it here, and I think part of it from the LCLD program that's made me think about this is more leadership can be, doesn't have to be hard. People think about leadership, oh man, do I have to take on all this role and responsibility? No, it doesn't have to be that hard, right? It can simply just be keeping the door open, keeping the ladder down, letting people come in and say, hey, who wants an opportunity? And just because you made it doesn't mean that you have to make other people go through the same hard path as you. And so I think those aspects to have the capacity to develop others in a dynamic setting, I resonated with.
Great, thank you. Nichole?
Yeah, so a couple things. One of them, it actually made me very happy, is I felt like as you were saying, things that a leader has, I thought, well, that's all emotional intelligence, right? That's the ability, the self-awareness, the empathy towards other people, the developing, that's somebody with a really high emotional intelligence. And that is something we talk about in the fellows program. And in fact, I have an emotional intelligence webinar for the current class coming up. So that's kind of what resonated with me, thinking, yeah, this whoever this is has to have a very high self-awareness of themselves and the ability also to realize what other people need in order to grow. As Joel said, it's kind of, the servant leader type. And the other thing that I kind of just picked out of when you were talking about is how you were talking about sharing your successes, but your, I forget the word you use, not mistakes or, when you did something wrong. Like, I think there's this tendency to just always put rose-colored glasses on and only show the good things or put a spin on things. No, sometimes things really did go wrong and it really was, my fault. And I'm going to take responsibility for that. And I think that's something that I think we miss a lot in leadership in general, is saying, nope, that was me. That was me. I'm sorry. I think that, there's very few leaders out there who will just generally apologize and say, yep, that was me. It was me. I made the wrong call on this and here's how we're going to fix it. So that part kind of stuck out with me as a leader's got to be able to say, my bad. That was the wrong thing, as well as, the successes, but also it makes you more human.
Yeah, you really are hitting the accountability portion when you identify that particular part of the definition.
Yeah.
Daryl, I'd love to hear what resonated with you.
Well, this is why it's fun to have a co-host, because you can play interviewee from time to time. I'd say the word praxis. And people ask me all the time, so what made you decide to go to Penn State Dickinson Law? And what keeps you there? And I tell them, it's what I see there, practiced thoughtfully, every day, every week. It's a small community, but it's made such a outsized impact in many ways. And you, Dean Conway, have been at the front row seat of many of those things, and more than that, a great supporter of many of those things, some of which we dream boldly, but we could not have achieved it without equally bold support and dedication over a period of time. Just like the series, which was created really as a platform to think about leadership, but has now evolved in our second season now into something which we are very proud of, and we are thinking of new ways of expanding it. And so this is one of our new innovations, having a co-moderated session. But now, wearing my co-moderator hat, if I might ask you, what was it that inspired you to think about that statement, and what are your takeaways from it?
Thank you for asking. So one of the inspirations for arriving at a definition was to always find, for myself and for others, clarity. It's often been my experience that we get examples of leadership. And I spent 27 years in the Army, in active duty, in reserve duty, in National Guard duty. And we get these manuals, and the manuals tell you, here is what leadership is. And then they just give you a scenario. So instead of just looking at scenarios, I said there has to be some theoretical underpinning. But as a Black woman, and Nichole, thank you for identifying, one aspect of American culture, right, is the Black woman experience. In those definitions that I was exposed to in the military, I never saw myself in those definitions. But even when I say that, I cannot say that I had a bad experience. I loved my time in the military because the people around me were enthralled, I think, with the diversity of the armed services. And so while I didn't see myself in the text of the things we studied, I felt the camaraderie in the organization on a personal level. And I think you see this phenomena happen in the law, especially because we literally are the archivers of our civic society through our case law, through our statutes, through our administrative rules. You see and you read what is our contribution to a civic society. But sometimes when you read, you don't see yourself in these archives and these annals of our society. And so I took it upon myself, yes, with a little bit of chutzpah, I took it upon myself to actually define that. And in defining it, I want people to critique it. I want people to add to it. I want people to investigate and interrogate it. And I want people to make that definition better so that we really can disseminate a definition that does engage all of us. And so this definition is coming out in our book series, Building an Anti-Racist Law School, Legal Academy, and Legal Profession, which will be published by University of California Press. But it is under the auspices of where Penn State Dickinson Law has been leading, and that's with this Anti-Racist Development Institute, to publish this book series. And it gives us all an opportunity not to assault anti-racism, not to assault diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, but actually it gives us a roadmap and a blueprint to say, how do we write this American story so that people are not erased, so that people find themselves in this society and in the archives of this society. And I think we in the law have the responsibility and the obligation to do that, because we are the stewards of the civic society. So that's why, and when I look at this screen, when I look at who's on this call, when I look at who's on this profile, and that we all have a connection to Penn State Dickinson Law, I could not be more proud that this work is starting here, but it will proliferate throughout the 200 plus law schools, throughout the 5,000 graduates of the fellows program, that it will involve all of our lawyers in society. So that's what I think I'm most excited by, most proud about in this work, and are looking forward to.
And also in that invitation, if I might, to Joel and to Nichole, to see the engine room where this engine is humming and all the positive energy is coming from the law school. So the law school that you graduated from, about 20 years ago. You come back now, it's transformed in so many ways, but yet I think, as Dean Conway says, it maintains that the core of what made it special and built on that. I didn't mean to interrupt. Please go
No,
ahead.
thank you, Daryl. That's so wonderful. I saw Joel was going to say something.
Oh, I was just happy that the law school is doing this. You know, I think that it is well suited. I think it is a very good program, outreach and continuation of the history. I mean, Penn State Dickinson has had a long history of, you know, being the steward of society, helping with society. As Nichole mentioned, if she thought about being an ADA, a lot of the ADAs, a lot of the district attorneys, a lot of the judges, a lot of the benches, a lot of the people in the Commonwealth and the areas, you know, have a connection there to, and we've done this for years. Like, Alumni have done this for decades. So basically the entire institution to do that. So to continue to do this, it's not a, to me, it doesn't seem like, oh, Dean Conway, you came up with something you were imposing on the institution. No, I think you're taking what was really there and building along and building it, including what has been done with partnership with the School of International Affairs and others. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you. So I think it's a great transition to the last segment of our profiles in leadership is to, and I love this question. So thank you so much, Daryl. I love this question. What advice would you give to your younger self?
I'll go. I think one of the things I would advise is, you know, there's this mindset you have to kind of not give up, right? Like not like do it to the full extent you can. But there's a downside to that. I think when you start doing something and then you realize it actually isn't what I want, it's what somebody else wants for me, right? It's what, you know, your parents want for you. It's what's expected of you. And then it's okay to try something else. You know, I feel like you have a career and you expect to just go step by step by step by step, right? But what if you don't want to go on that step? And for me, you know, I realizing that I'm not doing what I think I want to do long term and having to get over the, well, I'm going to disappoint, you know, my parents, I'm going to disappoint, what are people going to say about me if I, you know, leave practice? Like what, you know, I worried about that for a really long time. And now when I look back, I would say, you know what, you should be doing it. You're the only one who is in charge of your career. And you can't do it to always please other people. And your career isn't going to be a step ladder. You know, I've gone sideways. I've gone what some people would consider down, right, to get certain skills. And then you go up again, and then you do a lateral. And you're not just going to have a career that goes up and up and up. It's going to take lots of turns. And do that for yourself and not, you know, pursue things to pursue them. Always reevaluate, you know, your goals, always reevaluate, you know, what's best. And I think, Dean Conway, what you said in your definition about, you know, leadership being kind of situational, right? And insert what situation are you in now that's different, so that, you know, is it actually hurting you to pursue certain goals? So I would say, you know, care less about, you know, the expectations of everybody else. You know, embrace lateral moves, you know, downward moves in your career, make it a crazy, you know, zigzag all over the place in what you do. And that's only going to increase your experiences. So stop worrying so much about doing what's expected of you, to get a title or to not disappoint people, and do, you know, have the career that you want and the experiences.
Great. Joe?
Well, that's excellent advice. I think, you know, for me, and I'll tell you what mine is, but Nichole, the ability, so freeing to be yourself and not to have expectations of others. And so I like that a lot. For me, it's saying yes to opportunities. And it's similar to what Nichole was saying, but you know, my career has been because I said yes. the different things. I said yes. I went to the ABA spring meeting. I started in antitrust. But then, I left New York City and I came to St. Louis without a job. And, I said yes to an opportunity to do something I wasn't trained to do. I was doing products liability class action for a while. And then I had an opportunity to come to the firm, and I'm not a patent attorney. I don't have a patent degree. I work with people who are smarter than me, engineers, mathematicians, scientists. But I said yes to that. And then even here, to say yes to a bunch of different opportunities to learn in different areas. And I think that, not to say yes to everything, to be the yes man and take everything on, but be strategic about learning and taking on opportunities that you may not see the ultimate, reward immediately, but I think that helps. And it can be small, and it can be helpful. It can be, I'm on the St. Louis County Industrial Development Board or Authority Board, which develops or tries to develop manufacturing and low-income housing in the region and make those projects happen. But I got on that because I helped someone move their boxes in. They was trying to get some boxes out of the car and said, "Can I help you?" And so you never know where it's going to be, but being open to opportunities, I think I recommend myself and to others.
That's wonderful. So last question. Okay, and it can't be, I'm going to continue being a lawyer. If you had an eighth act in your life, your eighth act, what's that act going to be? And I'll give you a little help. So, mine, I love HGTV. I love everything about design, architecture, and decor. So I think I'm going to actually host my own HGTV show. So that's going to be my eighth act. So how about you? What's your eighth act?
For me, it's going to be woodworking. I love working with my hands. I love being outside. I like being in the garden, but I love woodworking, and I want to get better at it.
Oh, that fits well with the HGTV theme.
It does. So, when you do your show, like maybe
you're going to be the carpenter. Oh my God, this is going to be great. Okay, Nichole, and you?
Well, along with that, you know what, it's hard for me because I really feel like right now I'm in the dessert kind of my career, and just, I'm definitely where I should be and really happy. But I've always had I always do like, I don't know if I'm good at it, but designing things, like making sure my background here is kind of perfect, and thinking of a room and where I want to change things and put stuff. So I could be the designer on your HGTV show.
Okay, so we figured it out. This was Kismet. We're all in this together. I'll let you know when I write up the business plan for it. Thank you so much for joining us. Daryl, I'm going to turn it back to you to close this out.
Well, it only leaves me to echo Dean Conway in thanking you, Joel and Nichole, for being so generous of your time and so open in sharing these insights. I think they're both timely as well as inspiring. So thank you.